Hello and welcome to an all-new unbiased gear review. Today we are going to take a look at this. The Charvel DK 24 HHHTM Ash. I'd like to buy a vowel. The specs of the instrument are as follows. We have a two-piece swamp ash body with a bolted-on maple neck, maple fretboard with 24 frets, spoke wheel truss rod. We've got locking tuners. We have a Seymour Duncan full shred and a Seymour Duncan jazz, fixed bridge, master volume, master tone, and a 5-way blade switch. Okay, so we have a lot to go over with this guitar because it's not just about the build quality, it's not just about the features, it's not just about the tone, it's about how it all comes together and inspires you as a player. And the reason why I'm stating this at the beginning is because you're going to see that there's a lot of give and take on this instrument. There's a lot of things that is going to kind of trigger your guys' OCD. There's a lot of things that is going to make some of you guys go, nope, not for me. And there's a lot of things on here that might make some of you guys go, oh, dude, fuck yeah, I'm going to buy that. For starters, I got to get right to the build quality. There are definitely some glaring issues and some things that I expected to be issues but weren't. First of all, the fret edges are really nicely done. They are actually kind of rounded off, but perfectly flush along the sides of the board. That is super nice. There's a little bit of roughness on the upper frets up here, but for the most part, perfectly nice, perfectly playable, doesn't cut you or anything like some of the other stuff we've reviewed has. There is a little bit of a glaring issue with regards to some of the fret leveling. Right up here, the high E string on the first fret, that's literally the only buzz that I could find on this entire neck. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass when you're playing open chords, but that's really the only thing that it has any sort of effect on. For the most part, it sounds really good. There's no buzz whatsoever, just free and clear all up and down the neck. The nut is also perfectly flush with the neck, which is a damn shame because more than likely that's the problem with that's causing the buzz. So that would probably need to be replaced on this. Damn shame that it sits so flush and that's going to have to come out. The tuners are pretty nice. The only thing that is a caveat with this, and it's a caveat with most other locking tuners, is that you want to make sure that even though you lock this down, you don't crank it down super tight, because that tends to just break the string. And that definitely happened the first time that I strung this sucker up. The low string on here just snapped right off. And it's because I just kind of torqued it down. So, yeah, it's my own fault, but just so you guys are aware. Looking at the joint for the neck onto the body, it's nice and tight in there. Not really any space to speak of. Looking at the routing for the pickups. The routing for the pickups in some spots is a little rough, but for the most part is pretty good. One thing that you guys do need to be very aware of, and I'm going to post a picture of it right here. Take a look at that bridge. It is actually exactly as you're seeing it. It is a millimeter further away on the treble side than it is on the bass side. Now, something of note is that could tend to limit yourself if you're trying to do intonation adjustments on the bass side. That could also be just a problem with this particular instrument that might not be indicative of what you're going to find on all of the DK24 models. But it is still something that is worth mentioning to you guys. Something else that should be noted, when you take a look at the two pieces of wood that were glued together to make this body, are you noticing that it's a little off-center? Me too. Is it necessarily something that affects playability or tone so much? Not really at all, but it's just something that if you're kind of looking at this thing dead on, you might notice it. It might throw you off a little bit. Let's see, some other build quality things that need to be taken into account is the quality of the finish work. For the most part, it feels nice. It is kind of this raw wood finish, this charcoal gray that is open pore. One thing that I have noticed is that you've got a little bit of bubbling on the backside here in the finish. Not so awesome. Also, with regards to the finish work, as you can see, there's a little bit of overspray in certain spots. That's going to be a little bit different on each individual instrument, but in terms of this one, that's what we're looking at. One other thing with regards to build quality is the string ferrules on the back. When I took out the old strings to put a new set on and give this thing a setup, they just popped right out. Kind of similar to that old Made in China haze that I tried out many, many moons ago. Might behoove you to apply some glue or maybe even some heat shrink around the ferrules to get it to take up the excess space that's in there so that they don't pop out as much. One thing that is super awesome, do you see that jack placement? That's pretty cool, and that's also really, really comfortable. So that keeps that jack completely out of the way when you're playing it up against your body. And also the placement of that deep dish means that you're able to wrap it over the strap button for ease of use when playing it live on stage. Also taking a look at the neck joint, how it's kind of beveled off right here so that you've got better access to the upper frets. It's also rounded off here so that you can get a good firm grip in there too. It tends to play really, really nice when you're soloing up here. As I said before, the fret edges are nice and smooth, so you can get some good speed on this. The finish that's on the back of the neck, which by the way is kind of a medium C-shaped neck, the finish that's on the back is a nice, very, very smooth poly satin. This thing is built for heavy, chunky riffage and for some really fast lead lines. All told, due to the way that the feel is, the playability, what all the different features lend themselves to, this is definitely a fucking made-for-metal instrument. Now, talking about the tone, this guitar is a swamp ash body with a maple neck and a maple board, so you think it's going to sound pretty bright. And you would be right, it does have a lot of brightness to it. That being said, I was really surprised by how just kind of robust the tone sounded on this thing. Sounds very full, It definitely sounds like there's a little bit of, well, here, let me shut up and let me play. So even though the palm mutes don't sound bad at all, they sound kind of nice and full, it definitely sounds like there could be just a little bit more low end in there. It's definitely a guitar that's made for shredding, and that might be the reason why they popped that in the bridge. Also why they probably popped a jazz into the neck, which tends to also be a little bit less vintage and a little bit more modern voiced. They probably wanted this thing to be a modern shred machine. So, I mean, it definitely sounds great. The pickups, you know, they're high enough output. They're very modern sounding. Definitely great for metal. Definitely great for shred. But at the same time, with the fact that we are dealing with maple, swamp, ash, and these particular pickup sets, it does tend to have a certain bit of brightness to it. And it's one of those things where if I was playing this thing in standard, I might not necessarily enjoy it as much, but right now I've got it in drop C, and I'm getting a little bit meatier palm mutes out of it. One of the other things that should be mentioned at this point with regards to this instrument, being that it does have a rather bright tone to it, it does have a tone control. Now, I know what you guys are saying. You're saying, but dude, I never even touch my tone control. Hey, no problem. What's cool about this is that being that it is such a bright guitar, you might want to dial it back a little bit, but this has a special tone control that's called a no-load tone control, meaning that it does kind of rotate smoothly as you're going up, but once you get to dimed, it tends to have a little bit of resistance as you're trying to rotate it back. It's a no-load tone control, which also means that when it's dimed like that and when it's in that kind of locked position, it actually effectively takes the tone control out of the circuit, thereby making it so that it's not even affecting your tone. But at the same time, it is kind of nice to mellow this thing out ever so slightly. So, okay, we went over this thing as far as how it sounds, how it plays, how it looks, how the build quality is, and there's definitely a lot of pros and a lot of cons here. Now, one thing I want to make perfectly clear with this instrument, though, is that despite the build quality issues, god damn do I find myself playing this thing a lot. So that's what I was referring to earlier in this video with that, hey, you need to take everything into consideration, but the most important thing, the absolute most important thing when playing an instrument like this is you need to take into account, how does it make you feel when you're playing it? Does it inspire you? You know, for all my talk in a lot of these videos, even though I'm pointing out the flaws, even though I'm pointing out the build quality issues that a lot of these instruments have, if you get one of these things and it kicks ass for you, then by all means, more power to you. What I would say at this point, buy at your own risk, check these things out. Myself personally, I think it plays fucking awesome enough to justify the street price. The street price is about $900. If you don't think you can get over some of the quality control issues with this thing, completely understandable. Maybe check these things out in stores before you buy them, or maybe pick one up and make full use of your dealership's return policy, whatever. But worth at least to check these things out, you know what I mean? So what am I drinking today? I'm so glad you asked. Today, from Against the Grain Brewing Company, I am having 70K, which is a bourbon barrel-aged imperial stout. I believe it's actually a milk stout, but it doesn't actually say that on the bottle, it looks like. But that's okay. I like regular stouts. I like milk stouts. I like all stouts, really. This is kind of a heavyweight. It's a 13.0% alcohol by volume. Pours pitch fucking black with a little bit of a tan head. A little bit of chocolatey aroma. A little roasty. Ooh, that's good. Boozy, smooth but boozy, rather. Like I said, it definitely smelled a little roasty, and it kind of tastes a little roasty too. Definitely a little malty. A little bit of chocolate in there. Kind of a creamy taste to it too. Maybe a little marshmallowy. Maybe a little licorice. On repeated tastes, I'm picking up a lot of the roasted malts. But that's cool. That just means it's going to tingle back here in the back of your jawline. That's cool, though. It tastes really, really, really goddamn good. So that's it for me. Like and subscribe. Leave your comment in the comments section below, and I will see you in the next video, whatever that might be.